Hello, welcome to Talk Wildlife, and today we're going to be talking about Dragonfly Hotspots with Fiona McKenna, who is the Conservation Outreach Officer for England and Wales for the British Dragonfly Society. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Okay, so we will be talking about England and Wales, but because we're going to be talking about Dragonfly Hotspots, we'll also be talking about Scotland, because that's where it started. But I will be doing a follow-up with the Scottish team to talk about the Scottish part of the hotspots. But let's start off by saying hi, and what are the Dragonfly Hotspots?
Hello. So Dragonfly Hotspots, they are brilliant places for dragonflies and people, basically. And we've selected these special sites on a certain set of criteria. So they have to, first and foremost, be home to dragonflies. There has to be lots of dragonfly and damselfly species there, and really great habitat for them. Secondly, it has to be accessible for people to come and see these amazing insects and get close to them and learn about them. And we also like them to have some kind of educational facility or some way of holding educational and awareness raising events. And then lastly, but not least, is volunteering opportunities. So we want people to be able to get involved with looking after dragonflies. So that could be learning to identify them so they can go and survey them and get us some good data for the site or the surrounding area. And then that will feed into the management plans of the sites, which they could also get involved with the habitat management by volunteering to do sort of practical habitat management works over winter and early springtime, when you want to get in there and sort of get that habitat in tip-top condition for the next season. So there's sort of a few key criteria that we like these sites to have, and then if they meet all those criteria, then they get the designation of being a dragonfly hotspot.
Right. Okay, so what we'll do is I'm going to go in a bit further into detail about that in a second, but let's just talk about the history of Dragonfly Hotspots. It started in Scotland, and Scotland have got 10 sites, is that right?
Yeah, 10 sites across the central belt area of Scotland, yeah. So it started up there with the Scotland team came up with the idea, and they worked on it to find partners and find suitable sites. And to designate them, and then to work with them and have follow-up events, and to keep that relationship going with the partners as well, and keep the local community involved as well. So there's that ongoing sense of ownership and that real connection to dragonflies. So kind of one of the overall aims is to get people to really care about dragonflies. If they learn about them, there's that old saying, isn't there, that you only care about what you know about. So if we get them to learn about them and understand just how amazing these insects are, then hopefully they're going to want to protect them as well.
Yeah, and Scotland clearly has a few sort of special species. I won't go into too much detail with you about Scotland, because as I say, I am going to do a follow-up with the Scottish team. But can you give us an example of one of the sites that might sort of hold one of the special species so people know where to go looking?
Yeah, sure. So one off the top of my head is Flanders Moss, which is a national nature reserve near to Stirling. It's in the Stirlingshire area. And that's home to the northern emerald dragonfly, which you only find in Scotland, and it's one of the most southern sites that you can see them at. So you don't have to sort of go all the way up to the top of Scotland to see them. You can head to just near Stirling, which isn't too far up, and you can see these specialists there. So it's a pretty cool site. Right.
Okay. And are they, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but are they relatively common there? I mean, I know wildlife is wildlife, and you can't, wildlife isn't on tap. You can't just go, oh yeah, there it is. But if I was to sort of get in the car in the right season and drive up there, is there a good possibility I'd see them?
Yeah, so it's a fantastic habitat there. So it's got everything for that species. So there's no reason why, if you went on a sunny day in the middle of dragonfly season in the summer, why you wouldn't see that species. It's got fantastic bog. I think it's lowland raised bog around that area. It's kept in tip-top condition, and the volunteers work really hard and the staff work really hard to keep that site in really good condition. So hopefully you've got really good chance if you go along the boardwalks, you can get pretty close to them as well, get some good photos hopefully, which tag us in and share them with us if you do go up there. So once travel restrictions are off, then please let us know.
Well, you've made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck now because you said that I might see it. Not that I've got any plans whatsoever to go anywhere at the moment because everything just seems to be getting cancelled at the moment. But certainly if I don't go this year, I might go next year because, I do want to go up and see them. So that would be great. Right. OK, so let's come south of the border and let's talk about England, first of all, because I know that you're working on something in Wales, which we'll come on to in a second. But let's talk about England. So we've got 10 hotspots in Scotland. How many have we got in England at the moment?
So we've launched 4. So we plan to do it kind of at a steady rate each year in England and Wales. So it was a sort of initial 3-year period, which was kind of the, I suppose, the trial period to kind of work out where the best sites are and to build up relationships with partners and to designate them and work out what the model is that works well here, sort of for getting follow-on funding and things like that, and getting those communities involved, making sure it is a sustainable long-term project. We didn't want to kind of just go, right, we're going to pick 100 sites and give them this hotspot status and then, spread ourselves too thin and not be able to manage them properly. So we picked 4 over the first couple of years, so 2018 to 19. Over the summer of those 2 years, we launched our very first one in 2018, was Shropshire Hills Discovery Centre. So it's Craven Arms in the area of outstanding natural beauty of the Shropshire Hills. And it basically ticked every box for a hotspot that we could have wanted. It's got 13 species of dragonfly and damselfly there already, with potential to increase the habitat to get more species coming in, hopefully, or just more dragonflies. It's flanked by the Onny River and meadows and just lovely habitats. It's got existing ponds with boardwalks and pond dipping platforms, and it's got a visitor centre, which is fully accessible. The paths are accessible to all abilities as well. It's got all visitor facilities that we need. It's run by a great little organisation called Grow, Cook, Learn, who do wider work in the community already. They grow food and then teach people how to cook it, and they also sell it in their cafe. So it's got links into other environmental areas as well, and they work with butterfly conservation and other conservation organisations. So they're kind of looking after the food of the dragonflies as well, and people get to appreciate all the other wildlife there. You can go on so many walks from there. It's got train station and I think a bus station nearby as well. So it ticked everything really. It's got the local community on the doorstep, but also transport links in to bring other people in. So we can, make use of this bigger audience that can come to site as well and get them to know and love dragonflies. And it's got an established volunteering team, which we've tried to add to by trying to recruit dragonfly volunteers as well. And we help them set up proper recording of the dragonflies there and do ongoing events as well. So it was really kind of a no-brainer to pick Shropshire Hills Discovery Centre. So they were the very first one that we designated back in 2018. So it sounds like ages ago now, doesn't it?
Yeah, too right. So that's Shropshire, clearly, because of the name.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Shropshire is it?
So it's Craven Arms is the village that it sort of sits on the edge of, and it's kind of at the gateway of the Shropshire Hills area of outstanding natural beauty. So yeah, it's not too far, sort of Telford, Shrewsbury down that way. So yeah, it's a lovely site, really pretty. So thoroughly recommend that if anyone's within safe travelling distance of there, or in the future when we can go where we want again. Yeah,
too right. Yeah, it sounds like a must visit.
Yeah, and then the second one we did was Stover Country Park down in Devon. So that's near a place called Newton Abbot, and our our county dragonfly recorder, Dave Smallshare, who some people might recognise his name on their Dragonfly ID books. He's an author as well. He's based near there, and he put that site forward. So we chose that one as, again, it had really great visitor facilities. It's got 22 species of dragonfly on site, a real brilliant mosaic of habitats there. It's got really good pathways, so again, all ability accessible. I think it's got like an off-road kind of mobility vehicle that you can hire out as well. So it's it ticks all the boxes again for kind of people being able to get to the site, but also having the dragonflies and the habitat there, and an established volunteer group who we've helped to sort of train up in Dragonfly ID and getting to know dragonflies and what's right for them habitat wise. So that's been a really great partnership as well there. Then the third one that we designated was at the Leeds Bird Fair, which is in June each year usually. It's been cancelled this year, sadly, but it was a year ago that we designated Rodley Nature Reserve, which is just on the outskirts of Leeds. I don't know if you visited it, but it's fantastic. Yeah, it's lovely. So it's got the River Aire flanks it. And I can't remember the name of the canal. There's a canal that goes up, you sort of go over a little bridge to get onto the site.
Yeah.
It kind of feels almost like you're going onto a little island, so it feels quite special just getting into the site. So yeah, we again, one of our volunteers, our long-term volunteers, Peter Mills, he edits our journal, and he's been a long-term volunteer. He suggested Rodley, as he sits on the trustee board, as it's all run by volunteers. And it used to be a Yorkshire water site, like a treatment site, and then they wanted it turning over to wildlife conservation when the treatment works were decommissioned. So that's when the Friends of Rodley sort of formed this group of volunteers, and they've just done wonders with it. It's absolutely amazing site. It's got purpose-built ponds for dragonflies. It's got larger lagoons. And then, of course, it's got the river next to it, which does flood. So it forms a flood plain as well. So it protects houses nearby. So it's just got so many benefits to it. And say it's fantastic for dragonflies. They have 18 species there. No, sorry, 20 species they have there. And just amazing habitat. You can get really close up to the ponds. You can walk around all the different ponds. You can see different dragonflies at different times of year. You can go by the river and see banded demoiselle and things like that. So yeah, it's brilliant, and all ability accessible. It's got visitor centre, toilet, car park, everything people need as well. Easy access. You can get there by public transport, on foot or car. So again, that ticked all the boxes for us. That was a no-brainer. Yeah. And then our fourth one that we did was Thursley Common, which is down in Surrey, which is a national nature reserve, and it's managed by Natural England, but they work in partnership with a lot of other people in the area as well, because it's a very big site. And that was launched towards the end of summer last year, and we had a big sort of launch party there and guided walk around and everything. And again, that was suggested by one of our long-term volunteers, because they get a whopping 26 species of dragonfly and damselfly there. So it's really cool kind of heathland site with lots of like bog pools and different habitats and lakes and a bit of woodland, and amazing boardwalk that the volunteers built, like I think miles of it. I can't remember how big it was, but it felt big. It felt never ending, that boardwalk. It was amazing. So yeah, that's another brilliant site. And it's got a car park and it's got information boards. So it's not got as many visitor facilities. So we are quite flexible in our approach to hotspots, because the number of dragonflies and just how amazing the site was and the habitat and the volunteers there kind of outweighed not having the public transport linked so much, and not having a visitor centre and things like that. So yeah, that one got through on merit of those other criteria really. We do have a bit of a public service announcement for Thursley as well. So unfortunately, viewers might have seen in the news that there was a really big wildfire there just at the end.
I was ask you for that.
Yeah, it's really sad news. So it's damaged a huge area of Thursley. And unfortunately, those boardwalks that I mentioned that the volunteers lovingly put in have been extensively damaged. So it's quite dangerous to access bits of the site at the minute. And a lot of the trees have been damaged, so they're in unstable condition. So just, yeah, please be very careful if anybody is going to visit there, if you live within travel distance. Normally we'd be telling everybody to go there, and it's a fantastic site for dragonflies, tell us what you've seen, but yeah, at the minute, just please be very careful if you do visit, because it's not very safe, and just obviously don't go into any areas that have been burnt, because it's really not safe to do so. And just a wider message really as a follow-on from that, just to everybody, that the countryside is a bit like a tinderbox at the minute, as we had the hottest, I think it's the hottest and sunniest May on record, as so the news said, and so everywhere's just so dry, so just be very careful when out and about. Obviously, common sense stuff, don't light barbecues or campfires. Cigarettes, don't put them out on the ground, just be responsible with those. And things like litter, which obviously people watching this won't be dropping litter. You love wildlife, you're not going to drop litter. But if you see litter about, anything shiny particularly, that could act as, a form of ignition. As the sun sort of shines off that, it might start a fire. So think about picking that up if it's safe to do so. If you see any signs of smoke or smouldering or hot areas, obviously call 999 immediately. Don't try and tackle things yourself. There's been stories, I'm sure you've seen it in your local news, just all over the country, sadly. So it's just been so hot and dry. It doesn't take much, does it, to start a fire somewhere?
It doesn't. We haven't even hit the peak of summer yet as well. So, people have got to be, extremely careful. And I think this will be the norm now. It's with global warming, we're going to have to be more and more careful all the time. So moving on from the English sites, let's go, because I know that you've mentioned there's a Welsh site in the offering. So what's happening with Wales?
Yeah, so we've not done a huge lot with Wales, as I'm based over in the east of England, and then Ellie, who you've spoken to, is not too far from Wales, but we've not had anyone based in Wales. So we've not neglected Wales, but Wales has been on the back burner a little bit just because of logistics mainly. But we have made contact with the National Park Authority in the Brecon Beacons, as one of our county dragonfly recorders in that area, Keith Noble, actually put forward Llangorse Lake, which is, I think, the biggest freshwater lake in Wales. And Ellie and I went and met up with the team on site, and it's a stunning site, and they're really keen to work with us. They've got a good number of dragonfly species there. They want to do, even more to make it even more suitable for them. And there's like a huge reed bed section on, I think it was the southern shore of the lake, and they've got a raised bird hide that's got a thatched roof and a stained glass window. It sounds like it's the fanciest bird hide I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's really nice. And then you can walk around the shore of the lake to the other side where there's visitor facilities, Crannog Centre, which was really cool, which is like a little thatched hut on sticks out over the water, and they've got sort of canoeing and water sports and things that side of it. So they've tried to almost segregate the lake into kind of people activities at one corner, and then wildlife is free to exist without disturbance in the other areas. So yeah, they're really amazing team there, doing great stuff on really quite a small budget, and not a very big team either. So yeah, we're hoping to help them out and enhance the habitat there for dragonflies, and recruit more volunteer help as well, and just shout about Llangorse Lake and how amazing it is. So that was planned for this summer, before the worldwide pandemic hit. So we've had to put that back to next summer now, like a lot of our events. Just sort of put them back a year so that everybody can be involved and we're not excluding anyone, and just so it's safe as well. So that will be our first Welsh Dragonfly hotspot. So yeah, it's really exciting. So yeah, can't wait till we can actually go and visit again and do some events over there.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be an amazing one, that.
Yeah, and then we've got a couple more English ones in the pipeline as well. So again, they've all had to be moved on to next summer for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had Paxton Pits. So they were one of the first ones we got lined up for this summer. So they're a fantastic site again. Well, they're managed by the local authority, Huntingdonshire Council, but also there's a Friends of group that does a lot of the work there. Really dedicated volunteers. So it's a little bit like Rodley with having that kind of volunteer-led management. And that's quite near to, well, it's Little Paxton, but it's not far away from sort of Huntingdon and Cambridge and those kind of bigger towns, right near the A1 as well. So it's very accessible. And there are public transport links there as well. So yeah, they've got everything. They've ticked all the boxes. Loads of different species on site, lots of different habitats, flanked by a river. It's kind of got everything a dragonfly could want, really. And then a village on its doorstep. Hopefully lots of people just waiting to get to know and love dragonflies. And then another one was my local site, which I actually put forward as it's a site I've been to since I was a child, the first nature reserve I think I really got to know. And that's just outside Lincoln. It's called Wisby Nature, well, it's Nature Park, but I always think of it as Wisby Nature Reserve. And that's Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust site, and they get 22 species of dragonfly there. So they're kind of a well-known place to go and look for dragonflies in Lincolnshire. And it's old gravel pits, so it's kind of a suite of wetland habitat, all sorts of different sized lakes and ponds. So again, fantastic habitat for dragonflies. And we've got the visitor centre, toilets, car park, all that kind of stuff to attract people in as well. And a little education barn, which is really cool. So I can put displays in there, which I went at the weekends. We can't do any face-to-face outreach work at the minute, obviously. So what I've been doing is creating some nice little information displays to put up in there so people can do a bit of self-guided learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was meant to happen this summer, but again, that'll be happening next summer now. And then the last one we were going to launch this summer is Exbury Gardens down near Southampton, on the south coast. Again, that was Rory Mackenzie Dodds, who's our dragonfly champion, who people might know his name. He was he's written books like The Dragonfly Friendly Gardener. Chris Packham, I think he gave him a geek award for his dragonfly knowledge on Springwatch many years ago. So yeah, he's a fantastic guy. He brought this site to our attention and said, did you know they're taking out fish from these ponds, they're taking out some of the non-native species and totally revamping the ponds for dragonflies in particular. Could we work with them? I think it could be a hotspot. And that's right, get all the the information we need, and we'll put them into our little scoring sheet and see if they fit the bill. And they did. And they've also, which I don't think any hotspot has or probably ever will have, they've got a railway stop called the Dragonfly Halt, which stops at the Dragonfly Pond. So it's like that's going above and beyond, I think. So yeah, it's like, yeah, they're in.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. That
kind
sounds
of ready-made hotspot almost, because they were putting all the effort into making like an outdoor classroom area for pond dipping platforms, information boards, and then say the Dragonfly Halt stop on the little miniature railway line. That was just the icing on the cake, really. So like, yeah, of course we want to work with you. So yeah, they were going to be designated this summer and do a big launch event. I think we'd got Nick Baker lined up through their PR team. They'd booked him to come and do a big pond dipping session. And just officially launch the event and say a few words. So yeah, I was really looking forward to going to that. So I'm hoping we can just do all that for next summer now. So yeah, it should be really good fun. So if anybody wants to come down there next summer, then yeah, keep an eye on our website and our social media, and we'll let you know about that as soon as it's all there and ready again.
Yeah, and not only that, it's worth becoming a member of BDS, because you get a couple of great magazines. The journal is fantastic. It's a little bit more scientific. It's a fantastic journal. So that's a good way of staying in touch with you as well, because they really, it's a really good membership package and it's not expensive. So yeah, just a little plug there.
Yeah, thank you.
So, moving back onto Dragonfly Hotspots then, you've made me want to go out now. because you described it so well. I'm thinking, oh, I need to go out and see some dragonflies now. You mentioned One Wildlife Trust, and you've mentioned sort of a couple of friends of. So how does the partnership work? Who do you target, for instance, just specific smaller trusts and friends of, or how do you actually target individual organisations, or do you go by site first of all?
We've tended to do it a bit by site. I mean, in Scotland, we've worked with Wildfowl and Wetland Trust. They're probably one of our biggest partners, and we would really like to replicate that in England. So, you know, we probably will approach them actively if you know, we think certain sites could be really good, and they do so much for dragonflies kind of on their own anyway. So we'd really love to work with them and just enhance what they already do, as you know, they're fantastic. You know, if you've been to a Wildfowl and Wetland Trust site, you know, the information they have, they usually have an educational facility, and their online materials are brilliant as well. I mean, I've been looking them up when I've been digging my own pond and things like that, and kind of trying to get specific information on plants and how I could build rainwater gardens. So yeah, they're a fantastic partner. So we would like to do more work with them. But the rest, it has tended to be kind of led by the site in particular, kind of if it fits the criteria. We've not really had an ideal partner in mind as such. It's just kind of been, you know, do they want to work with us? Do they love dragonflies? You know, are they committed to doing more for dragonflies, or are they already doing amazing stuff for dragonflies? So yeah, it's kind of been on a case by case basis a lot of the time. But I think we probably would, going forward in future, kind of look to work or align ourselves with somebody like Wildfowl and Wetland Trust. You know, if we can build that relationship up, because they already have a really good geographical spread of sites. They're obviously wetland based, so they're going to have dragonflies there. And I've been to the wetland site in London, which is fantastic. There was a wildlife gardening forum event there. And it was a brilliant site, and I didn't get to look around a lot of it because I was at an event, so I had a stall there, and luckily I had a couple of friends volunteering on the stall with me, so they were able to cover, so we could each go and have a quick look around. So I only saw a snippet of that site, but yeah, it was fantastic. I just remember drawing up in the car park and hearing a Chetty's warbler, and I was like, I'm in London, this is crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
Common lizard sunbathing, and yeah, it's an amazing place, and I just think we've got a lot in common as organisations, you know, with our goals, I suppose, as well. So yeah, I suppose we would look to kind of enhance some partnerships like that, and perhaps create new ones if there's anyone out there that thinks that, you know, our hotspot project maybe aligns with what they want to do as well.
Yeah, and because you mentioned that you've had recommendations from people. So if there's somebody now sat in Suffolk watching this and thinking, oh, that would be an ideal one for this, are you open to recommendations from the public if they say, you know, here's something? And I don't want to open the floodgates here, but, you know, it may be that somebody gets in touch with you and highlights, because obviously you and Ellie and all the rest of your team can't be everywhere. But if suddenly somebody from Kent or Suffolk or somewhere like that says, what about this place? Do you then review it from there?
Yeah, definitely. And our county dragonfly recorders do this regularly. You know, they know sites in their area and hear about great sites or visit them themselves, or even know them well, might volunteer there. And they will put a site forward and say, you know, I think this could be a really good hotspot, and we'll say, like, can you get a species list for us, and, you know, information about access and how many days of the year it's open, you know, all those kind of things that we need to consider. And then it will go to the trustees meeting, and they'll discuss, you know, I'll kind of do the groundwork and a bit of research and put it into a little scoring sheet almost, and then there'll be a vote on it, really. So staff get a bit of input to it, volunteers get a bit of say in it, and then the trustees will have a democratic decision on it. So it's all done very democratically, really. We kind of, you know, vote it, discuss it, put forward, you know, your argument for it, and then someone will say, oh, but what about this? And so yeah, we have to select them quite carefully, as we only have so many resources.
Sure.
there's only me that's, you know, really working on this in the whole of England and Wales, with support from Ellie, of course. And then if we've got volunteers on the ground near to that site, that obviously goes in that site's favour. So I mentioned with like Shropshire Hills, we've got Ellie based nearby. So our conservation officer has always been based from the Telford Natural England office. So there was always going to be a member of staff near to that site to support them. And with Thursley, we've got our records officer, David Hepper, lives near to there, so he's always going to be nearby to support them. Rodley, we've got Peter Mills, and then Stover, we've got Dave Smallshire. So we try and sort of match sites to where there's an active county dragonfly recorder, or, you know, other volunteer with the BDS that can give them that on the ground support. And then I kind of do the overarching support, you know, from a distance, send them materials that they need, or offer them advice at the end of the phone, or, you know, on an email, or, you know, go down and visit a couple of times a year, with travel permitting, obviously, under normal circumstances. So yeah, it's kind of, it depends, I suppose, geographically, and how much support we can get for them in the local area. But yeah, we're open to suggestions, so we can't take all of them forward, not kind of in the immediate future, but we can put them on the list for consideration. So, you know, they might not get onto the shortlist for next year, but we might want something the year after or the year after that. So yeah, please do tell us about any sites that you think could be hotspots, but just kind of to manage expectations, you know, don't expect them to be immediately designated as a hotspot the next year.
Sure. Great. Well, before we end, there's two groups of people that you've mentioned throughout the interview that I just want to sort of pay tribute to, really. And that's number one, volunteers, because I know that a lot of charities couldn't do what they do without volunteers, and you've mentioned them a lot, so clearly it's the case of you guys. So first of all, thank you to all the volunteers. And then the other are the sort of people that are sort of unsung heroes, really, that don't really get a lot of recognition a lot of the time, which is the county recorders. You know, they do a really great job, and, you know, a really important job. So really just sort of, you know, I mean, not that I want to dedicate this interview to them or anything like that, but I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of them. You know, these guys, I mean, a lot of people watching this will be volunteers, and some hopefully will be county recorders as well. So thank you to them. But yeah, I think they do a great job, and you've mentioned them a lot. So I just wanted to make sure that we ended off with a note for them.
Yeah, definitely. They're absolutely fantastic. So we've got them in nearly every county of the country, and we couldn't do anything without volunteers. They're, you know, absolute lifeblood of small charities and large charities for that matter. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you, volunteers. Yeah. Please keep volunteering, everyone.
Yeah, keep doing it. Yeah. So thank you ever so much for your time. It sounds like a fantastic project. It's a shame that events have got in the way this year and sort of stalled it a little bit, but I look forward to certainly attending some of the Dragonfly Hotspots. Yeah, today would be good, but in the near future. Wish you all the luck with it. As I say, I am going to talk to your Scottish colleagues about the Scotland ones, so we'll get a bigger overview from up there as well. But for now, that was brilliant. So thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. And, you know, hopefully we'll be able to do a similar type of interview out in the field at some stage. Maybe not the one with the glass sort of stained window, because that's the other side of the country. I'm in Norfolk, but certainly the one near you, because I'm not far from that.
Yeah, please do.
All right, well, take care, and I'll speak to you in the not too distant future.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.